What's up, Andropolis Nation? We're here today with a very, very special episode of a Best Ball Draft Today. Today, joining me as our special guest is Mr. Andrew Mackens from over at Underdog Fantasy. Say what's up, Andrew.
What is up, everyone? I am so happy to be back on the Undroppables airwaves. My long-awaited return, as some might say. So really excited to be a part of this, do some actual live fast drafts for Best Ball Mania for the largest tournament in fantasy football history. So, I mean, what are you waiting for? Do you want to be part of the largest fantasy contest ever, or do you not? So I'm really excited to ride along for this one, Josh.
I know that I want to be a part of the largest fantasy football tournament ever. I competed a little bit in Best Ball Mania 3. That was actually my first time dipping my feet into the large field best ball tournament waters, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And my advance rate was pretty good last year, so I was like, what the hell? I only had 47 entries last year, but this year the goal is to max enter Best Ball Mania 4. And I'm about 38 entries through so far. So I feel like I'm tracking well to hit 150 but before this contest fills. So
that's awesome. I love to hear when people max enter, and it sounds like you are on a good clip, especially with having a best ball draft a day. I'm sure you're going to be, coming right up against it in that first week of September.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious to see if this one fills before September too. I know Underdog, you guys do a pretty good job of releasing like all these other tournaments to get people to like go enter those instead of to like slow down the rate of Best Ball Mania 4. Do you guys like have those sorts of conversations?
Yeah, I know our fantasy team works really hard on that to make sure that we have Best Ball Mania open for, as long as possible. I think last year Best Ball Mania 3 closed like a day before the actual Thursday. Okay. But I don't think it would be, crazy fun if it just filled in July, right? And then we were waiting a month and a half for it to actually start. So yeah, they do some great work over there. It's probably, a bit of art, a bit of science, just to make sure that, obviously we fill, but that we get to fill all these other fun contests as well, like the Chow Chow and the Poodle. So yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Okay, sweet. It made sense to me. So glad to hear that. But hey, let's not waste any more time. You ready to just jump into a draft?
Yeah, let's get after it.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. For all of you viewers at home, you guys are very familiar with this process. But here we go. Let's go ahead and just jump into another Best Ball Mania 4 draft room. Question, Andrew. When you're pre-draft, do you have any ideas, thoughts running through your head about how you should attack the draft in one of these large tournaments like Best Ball Mania 4?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for full disclosure, like being an employee at Underdog, I can't actually enter any of these large field contests that Underdog offers. But we do have some internal, admin contests where it's employees going up against employees. We've grown quite a bit. So the contests have gotten larger. And I personally still feel like I'm trying to get first just for the clout and for the glory, regardless of, the small prize pool that's available. Right. So last year when we had these, tournaments, even though the field is much smaller for us as employees, I was still looking at like trying to get first, really leaning into like the week 17 correlation that, gets talked about pretty often in the fantasy space nowadays. But what's interesting this year is I feel like I found just the way players are landing in ADP that I'm not reaching too much, and therefore I'm not getting as much maybe week 17 correlation or even team stacks as I would normally hope for. And maybe that's with like me doing more slow drafts than fast drafts too. Like you'd probably in fast drafts have to commit to some of those team stacks a bit harder. But in the slow drafts, I've been often just letting the picks come to me.
Okay, that's interesting. So You bring up an interesting point with the week 17 correlation, because that's something that I've talked about on the stream a pretty decent amount. And I'm curious how much priority you're putting on week 17. I mean, it sounds like you're not putting a super high priority on week 17 correlation because you don't want to reach at ADP. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not reaching too much on ADP, so I'm looking at, I'm not scrolling down too much, right, to find like who that next guy is that correlates, because then you're just going multiple picks out of, wisdom of the crowds, like who are the best players, and or who's the best player at that value. And so I haven't been reaching super far, but what I am trying to look for is like, okay, within this ADP range, like even if it's the next 10 guys or the next 15 guys to pick from, like, do I have any of these like opportunities to stack or correlate? So I haven't memorized the full schedule yet, but I am doing a lot of Googling of like, okay, team X, like week 17, week 17, 2023, just to get that refresher. And if I can't find week 17 correlation, I'm even going like the extra sicko level to look at week 15 and 16 correlation, because you have to advance those weeks too.
Yeah,
you need some stacking, I think, to repeatedly score a high number of points in each of these playoff weeks.
Well, it looks like we're on the clock, and then 4 wide receivers have gone off the board.
This is like an instant McCaffrey for me.
Yeah, I was going to agree. I have been drafting a lot more Christian McCaffrey recently, just because like whenever it fell to me at like 103, I was going Cooper Kupp, because I built a model and it basically says Cooper Kupp is going to, and kind of like intuitively, like Cooper Kupp is probably going to be a top 3 wide receiver this season, and he's going to be insane. Like even before he went down last year, he was the wide receiver 1. I'm a big fan of Cooper Kupp this year, but recently I've been, whenever McCaffrey's available to me, other than at 101 or 102, I've been hitting the button on Christian McCaffrey, just because like it's Christian freaking McCaffrey.
Right.
Like he's a fantasy PPR just god, and he's like puts up massive numbers every single week. And the San Francisco 49ers are still one of the favorites to win the NFC, and we don't even know who their quarterback is going to be.
Yeah.
I think that happened before.
Right. And I think this, the 49ers have a lot of options throughout the draft as well. So that's a plus of like, who else can we stack onto this team?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how often I'm seeing like McCaffrey get stacked with Debo, but Ayuk's a good mid-round pick. The quarterbacks you get, really late,
super late. Yeah.
I've been because it's so late, if I don't get like an elite QB, I'm often looking for Brock Purdy, just because I feel like continuity, that as long as he's healthy, it's worth a stab of him to be the guy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But we're early on in the season, so I'm sure we're going to get more off-season reports that might change people's view. I mean, it just seems like the sentiment on Trey Lance is so negative right now. It's like, how can you click on him, how can you click on like Sam Darnold at all? So,
well, I'm definitely never clicking on Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
That one feels just like way too gross for me to even stomach that sort of pick. But I'm not going to lie, I have been picking up a little bit of Trey Lance. I might be big braining it a little bit too much, but like part of me feels like San Francisco, they like to kind of do this little song and dance where their star players that they have drafted very, very highly, they'll put them in the doghouse and not really like talk about them positively too much. Kind of like what they did with Brandon Ayuk early in his career. And looks like we're back on the clock. So I'll continue my soapbox in a second. But who do you like here?
I know that there's been a bit of talk on like QB ADPs falling. So I don't feel like we need to like take a QB here. Maybe when it comes back to us. Devontae Smith, probably just so we don't get drowned in like the wide receiver. Yeah. Or like, I don't want to get suffocated by the wide receiver avalanche.
I agree. Let's go ahead and take Devonta Smith here. Maybe it could be interesting and see if like Jalen Hurts falls back to us.
Do you want to click the grid button to look at the board too?
Yeah,
Because I mean, with 4 wide receivers going straight off the bat, and then we take the value at running back, but then the issue becomes like, how many more like this could be a very wide receiver heavy room.
that's what
And
it's.
I haven't run into that a ton with employees. I mean, some of them are very like 0 RB heavy, but we're seeing none of these guys like making it to the turn like Chris Olave. I mean, Chris Olave went 201.
That's high.
Smith and Higgins usually make it to the early 3rd round.
They do.
So like, I feel like we're going to be really tempted to pick a running back again in the 3rd, and then we could do like a hyper fragile build, but we might end up getting screwed if some of these teams just like double tap wide receiver in the 3-4 turn.
You're right. This is a really interesting spot because same here. I actually haven't seen Devonta Smith, T. Higgins be the best 2 wide receiver options here at I guess near the middle to end of the 2nd round. But you're right. Usually I do see Higgins and Smith fall to like this 2-3 turn. So really interesting that we had to take Devonta Smith this early. Maybe, I mean, I'm wondering when these teams are going to switch over and start taking running backs. Okay, it looks like Pollard and Henry go here. Who are the top guys on the board?
I mean, I hope these teams kind of go running back now because that could get us Metcalf then. That's usually just with the gap here who I'm taking because he's best available. Yeah, and Stevenson's gone. I have a shit ton of Stevenson.
I have a lot of
and I don't take a ton of Jacobs or Hall, so I'm really hoping for Metcalf here. But we could, like we were saying, we could go Debo.
Okay, so
we would basically get our pick of what wide receiver you want, and ultimately this is your team, so like please feel free to choose whatever wide receiver you want.
I think we should go DK Metcalf here just for ADP because I have seen Debo fall a little bit in my most recent draft. So sure. I guess we can hope for him to fall to our next pick. Let's go ahead and take DK Metcalf here. And that does open us up to some Seattle stacks. I'm a big fan of Seattle this year. I think Geno Smith is one of my biggest quarterback ADP values just because he goes so absurdly late, even though all of the Seattle pass weapons all go in the first 6 rounds. And then Geno Smith falls to like the 10th round. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he finished his QB5 last year. So if we were to opt to go for like a late round quarterback sort of build, I think Geno Smith would fit perfectly with like a DK Metcalf here. And we could even target like a Jackson Smith and Jigba in like
you get like JSN, Tyler Lockett, and even Brandon Ayuk, who I mentioned before, all kind of in the same pocket. So that gives us a lot of outs at like continuing to stack up wide receivers.
Yeah. I mean, the way that this team is falling right now, my 3 biggest ADP values this year, I tweeted this out yesterday, are Antonio Gibson, Brandon Ayuk, and Geno Smith. And the way that this team is built right now, we could try and get all 3 of them because there's the Washington, San Francisco. That's the Week 17 game stack right there. And then Seattle plays Pittsburgh in Week 17. So we could look to add some like a Deontay Johnson, who I think is going way too late in these drafts. So we have some options open to us.
Yeah, we can get into like Deontay versus Pickens a bit. I've heard both sides of this argument the past week, and I'm pretty intrigued by it.
Okay. What side?
I mean, I think people forget that Pickens has that dog in him. And that's my argument. And that's like you're trying to project who's going to increase in ADP value and who's going to decrease, right? And Deontay, like, he's not past any type of age cliff yet, but there's a ton of statistical regression available for him there. But I just wonder if like he ends up getting just like Wally pipped or like outperformed by Pickens and becomes Pickett's favorite target hog. And maybe like, the Pickens thing is too easy for people to just go down narrative street. But that's, I don't know, from the times that they did connect last year, it just seems like, man, he is the next like baller at the wide receiver position.
Like, to be honest, I could see that happening just because like, I mean, Pickens does have that dog in him.
Like, this might not even be a fair comparison, but like Deontay could end up being like Jarvis Landry. Like, he's totally fine, but he's not like gonna just crush for you as like this like Cooper Cup level ADP value. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Okay. I was a little bit more on the Deontay Johnson side of the coin just because of like Deontay Johnson's target earning ability. All right, we're back on the clock here. I like Terry McLaurin here. What do you think?
Yeah, week 17 correlation. Let's do it.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take Terry McLaurin. I'm a Washington Commanders fan, so Terry McLaurin is just my guy.
Oh, nice. So when they finally sell the team here, are you like pro? You want to keep the mascot, Major Tutty, the humanoid pig, or do you want them to just like they like introduced him like in January last year, and I'm wondering if he's going to stick around or if he's toast.
Yeah, to be completely honest, like I don't pay attention to the mascot part of the
Yeah.
It's more so just Snyder is gone, so like we're all gonna party and rejoice in the streets of DC. It's gonna be a big old blast for every single Commanders fan.
For
So
sure.
I'm hearing that, I don't know how true this is. I saw this on Twitter, and like the NFL wasn't able to get like the patent and trademark for the actual Washington Commanders team.
Yeah, I heard that too. So then they have to like change the name again or something.
Which I'm not opposed to, because like, well, we've changed the name 3 times in 3 years. Why not make it 4 in 4 years?
They should just go back to Washington football team, right?
I would not be opposed to that. I thought Washington football team was kind of like a unique name, and people started to dig it, and like that was what we all called ourselves. So like it felt good. I don't know. Okay, looks like we're about to be on the clock again.
So this overlay is color coded in like game stacks, like in green.
The color coding is team stacks, and then if it's colored on the actual team, then that's a game stack.
Okay. Oh yeah, because I know Seattle and San Francisco don't play each other at the end of the year. I check that to make sure.
But
we have DK, which makes me think Kenneth Walker is like, he seems to be falling a lot, right? Like I was taking him in the 3rd round as like RB15, and now he's what?
He's
still RB15,
but all of the running backs just get pushed down the board like crazy.
I mean,
I like Kenneth Walker. I think he's a good running back.
You could go a lot of different directions here. Again, I leave this up to you. You're in the range where, who do you want to stack? Like we're in the range, within range of Kittle, within range of Ayuk, within range of JSN, or we could, you could take a best available like a Kenneth Walker and see who falls back to us. I know some people love Aaron Jones too. I mean, I know I just dropped like 7 names, but I'm sure you have a lean.
I think I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk here, just because I think Brandon Ayuk is supremely undervalued, and we get that Christian McCaffrey stack, and then we'll just get at our next pick, hopefully one of these 4 guys falls to our next pick and we can stack that. And like, my plan right now, like I do like Kenneth Walker a lot right here, but with all of the receivers just continually getting taken, like there have been a ton. Like Brandon Ayuk is wide receiver 31, and he gets taken in the 5th round. I'm just hoping like some of these teams, this team, they got 4, they have 2, they have 2, they have 2, they have 2, they have 2. This guy only has 1, so he's.
Oh boy,
he's going to be scraping for wide receivers.
Well, and what's the cliff? Everyone says Rashad Bateman is kind of like the end of or it always feels like when you get to him.
Yeah, and like the 8th round,
the last guy before a big gap. And we have McCaffrey, so we just go hero RB here. We don't have to get a second guy anytime soon.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker would have been the pick there. Like if we had taken like a Travis Kelce here, then probably Kenneth Walker for our first running back. But I think because we have McCaffrey, I think getting the 4th wide receiver with the game stack feels really, really good, because I expect the wide receiver talent to kind of dry up pretty soon. And maybe even at pick 68, George Kittle falls to us because people are starting to scramble for those wide receivers.
Yeah, that's a good point. So with Ayuk, like I think he seems like a pretty good value too, especially if Debo takes this like back seat where he's still a really important playmaker on the team, but he's just not a target hog. Is Ayuk in your mind also like a huge target earner, kind of like a Deontay Johnson?
Yes. But I think Ayuk is even a level above Deontay Johnson, because Deontay Johnson plays a little bit more underneath, and he plays a little bit more of that kind of safety valve sort of role for the quarterback. Yeah. Whereas Ayuk goes down the field. Ayuk goes and he runs those like alpha George Pickens style routes. I know Pickens just gets asked to run the fly every single time because Matt Canada's offense is a little bit archaic. But I just think Ayuk is an elite NFL wide receiver and one of the best offenses in the league. So I want to have as much of that as possible. So I already have like 30% exposure to Brandon Ayuk, and I expect that to at least stay there or continue to rise, just because I don't think Ayuk should be going in the 5th, 6th round. I think he should be going. Oh, Kittle almost made it back to us. That would have been really nice. But I'm a big fan of Brandon Ayuk this year. And it doesn't make sense to me why he goes off JSN or Goddard.
I mean, we're getting a lot of good, like with this premium draft capital, getting all of our game stacks. So I would probably go JSN as long as you feel good about his like rookie outlook.
Hey, JSN is my favorite rookie this year. So
there you go.
I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's just an absolute dog. And who's to say that Jackson Smith and Jigba doesn't go into that Seattle offense and just start commanding targets straight out the gate? So I'm a big fan of JSN. I'm really intrigued to see how the target share is going to work itself out in Seattle, because they spent a 1st-round pick on him, and he's a phenomenal wide receiver. And we're based off how the team is getting built out right now, it's looking like Geno Smith is going to be a prime target for us too. So I'm excited for this lineup, see how it continues to fall. But what are your thoughts on JSN?
I mean, for the draft capital he got, I mean, being a 1st rounder, being the first wide receiver off the board, you gotta like, their intentions there with him getting, probably going to primarily play in the slot, so could see a lot of volume, and for become a target hog, right? Mm-hmm. Interesting with Lockett there too. That is Lockett just going to be like the deep possession receiver, so could be the better target because he's just getting more deep targets downfield. Mm-hmm. I mean, he won't have any yak, but like, I don't know if JSN will either because he's kind of evaluated as like a slower receiver. I feel like I saw someone make a bet on his like season-long yardage total to be lower than whatever the line is at, like 725.5. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't like have these peak weeks like in the second half of the year, right? And that's what you're targeting rookies for, is for these games towards the end of the year in those playoff weeks that they can really spike. And so, I mean, of the rookie wide receivers, got to get them, but I don't know price wise how it feels. But I know we're on the clock again.
I like Goddard.
Let's go for it.
Goddard. I like Swift too. Do you feel anything about those two?
I would go, if we're between the two, I'd go Goddard.
Okay, let's get Goddard.
Just for this team, like pushing this hero RB a little bit harder. And I don't know how I feel about Swift versus Penny versus
Gainwell,
like all these other versus Gainwell. Like I think I've been looking at trying to look at my exposures while we're drafting here, and Gainwell is actually like my 3rd highest player of any position.
Let's get Gainwell in the draft. I like Gainwell late in the draft. It feels like he's getting pushed down way too far.
Because he has continuity on the team, and he's like, he's just an easy click, like that deep into the draft.
He's in an elite offense. He was used pretty heavily in the playoffs last year, if I remember correctly.
I've got, back to the Pitt thing, I've got like 20% Pickens and 0% Deontay Johnson. So
really, I'm like the exact.
Maybe I'll be proven wrong there, but I think that's just me targeting like 2nd-year breakout wide receivers,
which is fair. I mean, he did hit a lot of those marks that you want your rookie wide receivers to hit. So I'm like 20% Lockett, 10% JSN, so above average on both, but have leaned more to the veteran. Okay. And like, I don't fault you for that. I think I have a lot more JSN than Lockett just because they go like right next to each other basically. And I just have such a preference for rookie wide receivers being able to kind of break that barrier. But I do like Lockett a lot. I should be drafting probably more Lockett than I have already. But it's just like the rookie excitement. I'm caught by like the rookie fever because JSN, just like the shiny new toy, just really, really excites me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I don't blame you at all either. I think that's where I'm still trying to figure out, like, is that like, it's like the rookie wide receiver market, right? Like we know since basically Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, like we're still drafting these rookies too low, but I don't think JSN is going to have like a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase type year in this offense. And so that's where where I'm like, is the 6th round price, is he actually going to be able to return on that? And that's what makes it like a tougher click for me. But
I think it makes more sense in a team like ours because he's our wide receiver 5. So if our first 4 wide receivers can take us to the playoffs and Jackson Smith and Jigba does emerge and that offense as like an elite targeter in like the second half of the year, that could be very, very beneficial for us later in the playoffs and into week 17. And week 17 they play the Steelers. So hopefully he just burns whoever the Steelers slot corner is. I don't know who it is, but
I totally agree with you there. Like on this team, always is important.
Okay, so it looks like we're about to be back up on the clock. Interesting spot here. How do you feel about Deshaun?
If I knew we were going to target like a David Njoku later, who I have a lot of exposure to, I'd be like, yes, let's do that. And let's get like DPJ and these other things. I mean, we could go 2 tight end at some point and then just stop.
I think, and Njoku already got taken.
Oh, damn. Well, yeah, I'm thinking about like what stacks can we plan out? Well, I mean, Elijah Moore is there too. You take who you want.
All right, I'm just going to go Deshaun here just because he's the top guy on the board. We're getting him 10 picks after ADP. We don't have any stacks here, but we could game stack it out through the rest of the draft since I know there's a few players that we can get in Chicago, Houston. So maybe Deshaun could be the quarterback that gets us through week 15 and 16 because he plays Chicago and Houston, who are pretty weak defenses. The Jets have a pretty strong defense, and so that's where we bring in Geno Smith with the Seattle boys to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 17. Just an idea, I guess. Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, the ADP value, you always want to factor that in. And that's where I blanked it when we were on the clock too. It's like, wouldn't you want Geno to be like your number 1 QB? But now I think we go Watson, Geno, and then we're done at QB.
Yeah. Oh man, they have the same bye week. Oh, well, how do you feel about that? Same bye week.
The bye week brigade is gonna come out and tell us, oh, they both have the same bye, which we could have seen because we have Seattle guys on our team.
Yeah, we probably could have foretold that, but the clock didn't allow us that much time to look at that, but that's all right.
Yeah, I know Steven mentioned Zach Charbonnet in the chat. That could have been pretty interesting.
Charbonnet probably
should have been a Seattle stack. We could get him now because I don't know who else we're going to take in this range either.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is Charbonnet here at 9.5, and then we get Gibson at 10.8.
So then we'll be 1.351 if we go that route.
Yeah, it would be 1.351. Or is Gibson's in the same range as Geno? Ooh, that's tough.
I mean, if we're talking correlations here, like we need to stack the Seattle guys first.
Yeah,
we don't really need like a running back stacked within this San Francisco, Washington. We already have Christian McCaffrey. That's
very, very true. I just have such an affinity for Antonio Gibson. I just how much exposure do I have right now? I have 48% Antonio Gibson, so I don't need to. I don't need to get him.
You know, last year I felt like I was around like 8% for like almost everyone, and it didn't give me any super teams. So now I just like want to take more stands like that. And my biggest stand so far has been Ramondre.
But I like stand.
But like later in the draft, I probably have been more like I'm just trying to keep it balanced and click whoever. Charbonnet's good for Seattle stack, and he could catch more passes than Kenneth Walker.
Yep.
Plus, like later in the season, like coming up same time as JSN, but yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you think about, like, once you start to stack so many of these guys, do you think that actually would push the ADP of the quarterback down further because no one would want to like take Geno unstacked, right? I feel like it depends on the room you're in.
That's true. I think the one guy that could steal Geno from us is the Lockett owner, wherever that guy is.
Yeah.
Let's see if the Lockett owner has a quarterback. Where is Tyler Lockett? 6th round. He went in the 5th, 5-12. This guy has Trevor. So we probably don't expect him to take Geno. And it looks like he's not really stacking anything. He's just taking players.
Yeah, too bad we can't make trades because we could trade Njoku and get Njoku on our team for Deshaun Watson, although then he wouldn't have that. We could, see, now he took Geno.
He took Geno. Okay, wow.
But he's reaching for Geno at that pick, right? Like,
Geno
would have been right at ADP if we take.
If we took Geno here, because Geno's ADP is like 114, I think, 113.
I've done those drafts where like maybe that's because if you're in a draft where people are more aware of stacking, I feel like Geno does fall to the person trying to stack them in like drafts where people know like, okay, stacking is like a thing, right? Like stacking is one of the most important parts of roster construction when it comes to best ball. So if you're not in a room like that, you can't really bank on it. So now I'm actually glad that we got Deshaun Watson because we just took the ADP value there.
Yeah, and then Geno wouldn't have made it to us. And then maybe we could look at like a Purdy, Sam Howell, something like that. Or we probably – depends when we take our second quarterback, but it looks like we're back on the clock here. I'm down to take either Penny or Antonio Gibson.
You have 40% is a hell of a lot of Gibson, so I'm going to recommend Penny.
Let's go Penny
with Goddard.
Let's go Penny for the Devonta Goddard Penny stack, and they're playing. So I can see a scenario where DeAndre Swift has gotten hurt, and Rashad Penny is the lead back in Philadelphia in Week 17. They play against this atrocious Cardinals defense, and they hand the ball off to Rashad Penny 30 times, and he goes for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he helps us win the league.
And I forgot we have Devontae Smith too. So like we got triple stacking, one of the best offenses in the league. I'm not even opposed to getting a second Philly running back, depending on how this room
getting Kenneth Gainwell. I'm completely on board with that.
I guess the only question that I would have for you is when it comes to like roster construction, and we've got to this point now. We're like, well, we didn't have to take Geno. We got one of these potentially elite QBs in Deshaun Watson. We could draft him unstacked, like just being a good player. But, if we can stack him, we should. But now we've got 3 running backs and 5 wide receivers. So how fragile do you want to get with the running back position? Do we get back to the wide receiver well now so we can get some more guys who aren't just like complete flyers? I mean, again, it's your team. We're not. I'm riding along here. So,
usually when it falls to this sort of range, I kind of just go with. Honestly, I just go with the vibes, man. Just like whoever feels like the right player for this team, I usually go with. In terms of like roster construction, when I have 1 quarterback, 3 running backs, 5 wide receivers. Because I have enough capital at each of these positions already, typically I do go back to the wide receiver position. Like in this range right here, like we have just like flyers, like some people that could really pop off this year, like a Sky Moore, like a Jonathan Mingo. Like these guys could really outperform ADP. They could also be zeros or like very low scoring picks as well. So like when I am taking these picks, I usually like to kind of swing for the fences with these sorts of picks on like high powered offenses.
We are in this like kind of luxury pick range because it just feels like if the draft ended now, we'd have this amazing team.
Exactly.
But we got more rounds to fill. So if you like KC, like you have a lot of options there. And my only other question would be is, am I a sicko for liking Mooney? And you said he has correlation with Watson in like week 15 or 16.
Honestly, let's go Mooney. My model loves Darnell Mooney. I wouldn't call you a sicko for liking Darnell Mooney, because I think like he was hyped up as a big breakout wide receiver last year. Didn't really come to fruition because that Chicago offense was kind of just bad all around. Yeah. Other than Justin Fields just running for his life and putting up like 1,100 rushing yards, something like that. I actually expect the Chicago offense to be much improved from last year. They add DJ Moore. I think they added an offensive tackle in the draft, I want to say. I'm actually not 100% sure on that. But
yeah, they did. They brought in a mammoth of a man. Did
they bring in Darnell?
Darnell Wright, yeah.
They brought in Darnell Wright. Okay. Yeah, I know he is enormous with just like super long arms.
There's been a bit of conversation on that too of like, if you expect this Bears offense to take a jump now, well, is DJ Moore like overpriced? Like there's kind of been his ADP conversation has been talked about a lot, at least in like the kind of the streets I've watched, like ship chasing a lot. Shout out Pete Overzet and Pat Crane, Ben Gretsch. They talk about DJ Moore all the time. And my question would be like, is it a good narrative to say, well, DJ Moore is going to take this attention away from Mooney? So really, if DJ Moore is overpriced, does that make Darnell Mooney underpriced?
I think both can be true. I actually don't think DJ Moore is overpriced. I think that where's DJ Moore's ADP? He's at like 45, right? He was the first pick of the 5th round to stack with Justin Fields. I think he's correctly priced. I think DJ Moore is an elite NFL receiver. I've been in that camp since like 2019. And he's just like never fully broken out as like a wide receiver 1. And it's been the most frustrating thing to own him in Dynasty. So he's been someone that I've held out hope for a long time. And like, maybe it's wrong of me at this point in his career to like kind of like pump my brakes on him a little bit, just because this might be the year that he really like shows us how elite of a receiver he really is. But I think that the Chicago pass volume is going to increase as a whole. I think DJ Moore is going to get his, but somebody else on this Chicago team is going to have to eat up targets as well. Darnell Mooney in the past, I don't know exactly how many targets he's been getting in his career. Let me actually look that up real quick. But I think Darnell Mooney is definitely a little underpriced. And he's getting slept on a little bit.
He's like wide receiver. I just looked on Underdog. He's wide receiver 57. And I mean, I feel like he's the wide receiver 2 on that team. Like, and there's not much competition except for Velus Jones. Like, I know I don't.
It's Claypool too.
Claypool. I guess don't have a ton of people going crazy for Komet. We're on the clock with 10 seconds. Just pick who you like. Rondale Moore correlation.
Rondale Moore. He's correlated all 3 weeks, so why not?
Yeah.
Wide receiver 2 in the Arizona offense. I think our wide receiver room is pretty good now. I don't think we have to touch the wide receivers anymore, and we can just focus on the other positions.
I was going to say, it starts to look real nice really quick when you just stack 2 more wide receivers on top of the 5 that we had.
Exactly. And like these guys are dudes who will be on the field for their offenses. Whereas some of these other guys like can't really say the same. Maybe the one other receivers we could look at is like a DPJ or Cedric Tillman to correlate with Deshaun Watson if we want.
I have a ton of DPJ also.
I like DPJ. I think he's been like the deep target in Cleveland for a long time.
I mean, I feel like he should be going. He's wide receiver 72.
It's way too late.
Going before Mooney, like even just based on last year, like he had some really good games down the stretch, and it was like, oh, he's like a sneaky flex option in your managed leagues.
Yeah. 61, 839, and 3. Yeah, I guess the touchdowns aren't quite there yet, but they haven't really been scoring too many touchdowns in Cleveland.
I mean, that's if you want to stack our quarterback. Otherwise, I would maybe start looking at other quarterback options, or like Steven mentioned, we could really go Sam Howell. And then the question is, do you want a third quarterback? Like you get Sam Howell, Brock Purdy, like
we could do a Sam Howell, Brock
and
Purdy.
see which. I mean, we have so much early wide receiver. This is where I get really like start to question myself on picks, because we do have what feels like a really strong receiver room. I think we could get at least one more and then be done at 8. And then it's just like, how uncomfortable do you want to be at running back? Like, do we only need 3 guys? Because like we need McCaffrey to be healthy all year anyway, for this team to do anything. So do you need probably should get a 4th running back?
Probably should get a 4th running back, I think. I do like Tank Bigsby. McKinnon has fallen. He's cratered in ADP.
I think you take the ADP value then.
I think
20 plus picks is quite a lot.
Yeah, like that's a ton. I think I'm just going to close my eyes, hit the button on McKinnon. I don't particularly love McKinnon at ADP.
Well, good thing you got him after ADP.
We got him 20 picks after ADP. So like I think that's only my second share of McKinnon. I think my first one was in like my first best Ball Mania draft, and that was when he was still going like the 16th round. And then he's like massively raised in ADP value or in ADP, and I've just been staying away. But yeah, okay. We get McKinnon here 2 rounds after ADP. And then that opens us up a little bit to the Kansas City offense, but we don't necessarily have to stack McKinnon. But what are your thoughts on like Kyler Murray this year?
I've started to take him a little bit more because I've seen people say like, well, why are we just assuming he's going to be gone the whole year? Like he could be a great, especially if we have Rondale on this team. I think he continues to just slip in ADP, especially like with this Hopkins news. Like Hopkins isn't going to be there, but like they're going to have to. I don't know. People just think that they're tanking, right, and that the team isn't going to put up points. But usually the phrase is that GMs tank and coaches and players play to win. And so as long as he's healthy, like it can only help his like future prospects to play this year.
Exactly.
But I think sitting a whole year, like that did nothing for like Ben Simmons, right? So like why would Kyler
talk about Ben Simmons now?
as long as, I mean, not to get into NBA, but like if Kyler can play, I would think he'd be out there. It's a bit of a luxury pick because but what do you think is the percentage chance that he's actually a 0 in the lineup?
I think Kyler Murray plays by at least week 8.
Yeah, we don't need him like right off the rip. And exactly. What round is this?
This is the 14th round. And like
Deshaun Watson was getting drafted before the 14th round last year, and he was suspended like straight up. He's not playing games.
Yeah, and we hadn't seen him play in over a year.
And people are still taking him for his upside. So Kyler Murray, I love the talent, particularly when he's healthy. That would help. I mean, I kind of like DPJ here because I'm like Kyler would not be a bad pick. It's just a choose your own adventure of like, we could get Howell and Purdy as our second and third quarterback and do like, especially because we're going to draft like fewer running backs. We have room for kind of this, more like an extra quarterback. So that's where my mind is, where it's like, we'll get at least one of those 2 QBs, like Washington, San Francisco, for tight ends. When we're getting towards the bottom here, we could just take Trey McBride and call it a day.
I was
on a tight end.
He fits his team. But yeah, I mean, just to get back on the DPJ point, I love DPJ. I agree with you. I think he goes way too late. People seem to be just underrating this Cleveland offense as a whole. Just because the assumption is, Deshaun Watson looked like trash at the end of the year. So he's going to look like trash this year. And that's why he's going in the 8th round as like the QB. Well, he goes in the same round he goes after Anthony Richardson, which seems wild to me because when Deshaun Watson in the past when he was in Houston, he was QB5 every single year, and just put up elite quarterback numbers. And like with the whole offseason under his belt now, with kind of all of the legal stuff behind him, he's able to, I guess, regain his focus. And based off of like the news that's coming out of OTAs, like they say this is like the best quarterback that they've ever seen in Cleveland, which I mean, I believe.
not hard to beat.
It's Cleveland. But who's to say Deshaun Watson just doesn't get back to that form? So I like taking bets on Deshaun Watson and DPJ.
So DPJ, we got pick 164. His ADP is pick 158. So we got a small value there. And Kyler came back to us. Yeah, so I think we scoop up the value.
Yeah.
That way we don't have to like rely on, say, Howell and what's his nuts? I just
Purdy.
Blanked. Purdy, yeah. Plus the Howell has a week 14 bye, I believe, from looking at our team. Washington
he does.
The week 14 bye. So we don't want to make that. We ended up not having to draft Geno and have the bye week issue, right?
Yeah, we ended up avoiding that. We ended up getting Kyler, and then we can also add Brock Purdy, stack him with Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey. And then we have the bring back and Terry. The Philadelphia-Arizona game stack is also coming along too.
I know. I was like looking at our team, like how many teams have we even drafted on this team? Like this is probably one of the most correlated teams.
Oh, Brock Purdy got taken.
Yeah, no worries. That would have been crazy if we took Purdy too. Like
if we got Purdy too, that would have been pretty wild.
I mean, you could. This would be, I don't know, another luxury pick, but you could take Pickett, but you have him unstacked. So do you really think he's worth it unstacked? I mean, you got him like with a bring back, but
we have the bring back. I'm not.
That would imply that like Pickett is going to go off. And you don't have any of his like stacks, and that the Seahawks are going to go off, and that Geno's just going to hook up with the right guys. I don't think that's nearly as correlated as we would want, right? Because Pickett would have to, like JSN and all those Seahawks guys could do great, and Pickett could play like trash.
Basically, well, I would hope that in that game, like Kyler Murray is going off against the Eagles, or maybe the bet here with getting Pickett is Pickett has just 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, you need your lineup to tell a story. I mean,
exactly. So Pickett.
I just think like if we have Philly, Arizona as like a week 17 game stack option as well, I don't know. Pickett seems like. I mean, you want multiple outs, right?
Yep.
But in terms of like the leverage, like there are going to be like if Kenny Pickett goes off, there are going to be Kenny Pickett teams that have George Pickens on their team or that have Deontay Johnson on their team. And so I'd be, again, this is your team. I've said it throughout the draft because it's ultimately your picks, but I would be worried of like, okay, if Kenny Pickett does go off, we don't have him stacked. And so it doesn't do anything for us in like the week 17 scenario.
Yeah, ended up taking Kenneth Gainwell. I agree with your thinking there. Because the Pickett teams that I do have, I have them stacked with Deontay. I think I have him stacked with Freiermuth.
But to your point, like if he has 2 rushing touchdowns and he doesn't throw anything, like then you do have leverage. But that's quite the.
It's a thin, very thin sort of bet that we're trying to project out. 6 months into the future.
Right.
So actually, the big brain thing that I just thought of is maybe the stack that we do try to add here. Well, not in this pick, but in the 18th round, is how many teams are drafting Ryan Tannehill?
So where do you think Tannehill is going that you would stack him? Like,
well, no, I wouldn't even stack Ryan Tannehill. It's kind of an unstacked Ryan Tannehill, where basically like my bet is that not everybody is drafting a Ryan Tannehill. So if these guys are able to get me to week 17, the Titans play the Texans in week 17, and that could be just 2 like bad defenses going up against each other, putting up a bunch of points. where Ryan Tannehill does put up points and he scores more than a Deshaun Watson and a Kyler Murray. And then the rest of these players, the San Francisco-Washington game is a high-scoring game where they're able to put up a lot of points. Like a Christian McCaffrey goes off. We could even see that Rashad Penny scenario, which we talked about. Devonta Smith, DK, Terry, Ayuk, some combination. Three of these guys go off, and then Tannehill is able to fit in as our starting quarterback. 18th round too.
So we still only have one tight end.
Yep.
And we got 2 picks left. And this is always hard when it's like, man, I just want to draft another 5 players.
Well, I think McBride is definitely the pick here.
It's McBride or it's Conklin, because we have some Cleveland players and you could do a Jets bring back. And that's where I was going to ask with our 18th pick, do we draft any Jets? You can queue up McBride just so we don't miss him in 10 seconds. Because it'll just auto pick at 0. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely. I mean, that's our second Arizona guy, so that's good.
That's our third
or a third.
Yeah, I like McBride. I think McBride should not be going this late. I think he's a phenomenal last round pick, but getting him in 17th, I don't think.
I meant our second weapon stacked with the quarterback, but yeah, third player.
So, kind of my thoughts here, because I do like the idea of a Jets bring back. Let's see our playoff view. Oh my! Look at that.
You could because we have 3 quarterbacks. The bye week doesn't matter as much. You could just do the Sam Howell.
So we have some options.
And ADP doesn't really matter this deep either, right?
Yeah, ADP does not matter.
You can pick whoever you want. I know you had on the show sheet how do you get unique at the end of drafts? And basically, you could go Greg George, you could go Michael Wilson. I mean, this is. Betting on the Cardinals to win you $3 million is definitely a way to.
That's a strategy.
That's unique in itself. So I don't know if you need a third guy to stack with them, especially against Philly's defense, right? Philly's defense should be good.
Yeah, it should.
So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend taking a second Philly tight end. No, I don't know if a Quez Watkins is available this deep. You could do something like that.
Quez Watkins is here, but honestly, I'd rather bet on Olamide than Quez.
Yeah, I mean, I would trust your model at this point of who's the guy who's completely
So I know down here in the 18th round. Oh, if Conklin makes it back to us, I think we take Conklin. Because there's ADP value on Conklin, and he adds the bring back. And as our third tight end, I guess that works for us. A 2-5-8-3 build.
Yeah, you could go 2-5-8-3. I guess some people are. I feel like I've heard people say Goddard's one of the elite tight ends.
Yeah,
he's in top 6 range. So
my model also likes Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I don't think I'm going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire on this team. My model likes Corey Davis.
Assuming he's still on the Jets, that'd be a pretty good bring back.
My model likes.
We are on the clock, so
yes, I see that. Let's go ahead and it feels like a gross pick, but let's go ahead and take Corey Davis for the week 17 bring back with the Cleveland guys, because Corey Davis, I think he had 1 week last year where he scored 2 touchdowns. And who's to say that he's not able to do that week 17 against the Browns.
I mean, 2.592 is a really solid build, especially with McCaffrey. Just talking straight numbers, 2.592, pretty straightforward. We're assuming Watson's going to take a increase up, right? Improve.
Yeah, we're basically betting on him balling out.
Yeah, even if Kyler ends up being a shaky backup, that will be really interesting. I think the biggest, but I know Justin Herzig has said you want to be uncomfortable at certain positions. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, it's your again since it is your team. What position are you the least comfortable with right now? Is it quarterback? Because
it's quarterback. Quarterback is definitely the position I'm least comfortable with. Maybe instead of Corey Davis, we could have went Sam Howell with that last pick, especially because the week 5 we might not have a quarterback to fill in there, just because Kyler Murray may not be back in week 5. So maybe that is one thing that we did overlook. But as talents, those are, I think that Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray are great bets from a talent perspective.
Yeah.
I think that they're phenomenal quarterbacks. And then our running back room, we're anchored by Christian McCaffrey. So we're going to have an RB1 every single week. Like it's Christian freaking McCaffrey. And then hopefully one of these 4 guys can fill in our roster on a weekly basis. And then our wide receiver room is probably the strength of our roster. Like our wide receiver 5 and Jigba is pretty wild.
We have JSN as the 5th wide receiver, and then we just added another 4 guys: Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, DPJ, and Corey Davis, who have all had different spike weeks throughout their careers, even if it's, one here or there. So maybe overkill at the wide receiver position, but like that's the easiest places to find like the correlations, the bringbacks. I can tell you this. Well, I don't know this for a fact. Like I'm not citing data or anything, but in my own mind, this looks like a pretty unique team. Like game stacking, like Cleveland, like Browns, Jets, and Cardinals, like the Cardinals side of Cardinals, Vikings. I mean, we got some good, or sorry, not Vikings, Eagles. Some Eagles players in there that could carry us across as well. I mean, I just love when you draft a best ball team and like all the pieces fit like this. We haven't even talked about like the Washington, San Francisco kind of stacks we have with McLaurin, Ayuk, and McCaffrey. That feels really nice.
Yeah, it does.
I think with your point about the injury, like it would have been nice to get that Sam Howell, even with the week 14 like overlap and bye.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if Sam Howell's going to start. Like, I don't care. Like, I've heard the back and forth on that, so that could be another risky pick. But to your point of like, I'll try to go on this with the bye week thing. Like, had we been able to go Watson and Geno, the benefit is at least like we have 2 quarterbacks every other week, and we take a 0 for just week 5, assuming health. With this, like, we're going to take a 0, or we might take a 0 week 5 if Kyler doesn't play. And when we get to week 14, we have to take Watson's score. So that could, unless he balls out, doesn't matter, right? And obviously you want to assume that you're right in a lot of ways. So being this heavily correlated, I think, is the biggest thing for us that is going to, hopefully get this team to advance.
Yeah. Quick point on Sam Howell. I do think he is going to be the starter. And I think if I were to change anything about this draft, instead of taking Corey Davis in the 18th round, would have taken Sam Howell. And then I think this kind of would have been a really, really nice team. I still think that this is a very, very nice team, and it has a pretty decent shot at making it through to the playoffs. And if this team does get through to the playoffs, like you said, I think that this is a very unique roster. And with all of these wide receivers, we only need 3 of these guys, maybe 4 if we're going to throw in the flex.
Yeah.
To go off in the playoffs, and we can make it through to week 17. And then at that point, we have all of these game stacks to really help us out. The one thing I do like about getting all these Cardinals guys late is the first Cardinals pick that we make was Rondale Moore at pick 140. Like they all fall so far in the draft, other than like James Conner, who goes in like the 8th round. All of the Cardinals fall so far. Like Rondale Moore in the 12th round. We got Kyler in the 15th, Trey McBride in the 17th. And those are all like pieces of the offense that are going to be on the field a good majority of the time. And like people are assuming like the Cardinals are just going to like roll, like keel over and just like not do anything on offense.
Yeah. They think they're going to average like 3.5 points a game or something. And
yeah, like
I said, they're going to try to win these games.
They're going to do something.
That's not to say like, oh, this is the GTO strategy. Like this is like that the Cardinals are clearly underpriced. And, worst case scenario, you can just say the lineup is unique, as we said. Like it feels so heavily correlated. I would be curious to know how many sickos out there have like this exact number of game stacks, and you'd have to like count it out, but like we got 3 players from Cleveland Jet. We got you've got the games right there. We've got what is that? 7 players from Philly, Arizona.
We have the entire Philadelphia, Arizona.
We're just like, banking on that game real hard to be like, some noon game where the Eagles just go crazy and the Cardinals are getting so much garbage time. And we got 3 players from San Francisco, Washington. And this overlay just shows those 3 games because those are the correlated games for us.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing from Pittsburgh, so technically no game stack. But we have 3 guys from Seattle, so that's like
name Metcalf, JSN. Yep.
That's like 80% of our team consolidated into like 3 Week 17 games. So I think we did pretty good at least on that part.
I think so too. I'm a big fan of this team. I think we did a great job constructing this sort of roster. And this was a lot of fun. I feel like we had a lot of like high level conversations that evolved into like kind of putting it onto our actual team. So this has been a very fun sort of draft to be a part of. I'm really happy that we got to do this, Andrew.
Yeah, it felt really good because, like I said, some of the drafts I've done with like employees does not feel this good in terms of like getting the stacks that I want. And so, I'll have to look up some and just share with you some crazy teams where it's like, I think this was a fast draft because I have no clue how I got to like build the team that I built. But yeah, no, this was a really fun time, man. And I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, of course. This has been a long time in the making, Andrew. I remember we discussed this possibility last offseason, and then we finally brought it to fruition this year. So this has definitely been a ton of fun. Might have to bring you back onto the show.
Yeah, no, anytime, man. I'd love to come on again sometime in late June or July and see how much has changed. And hopefully we'll have some good news of Kyler Murray's recovery as well.
Yeah, that's I think he is the guy that has the biggest potential to rise in ADP, just because like if we get news that Kyler Murray like isn't even going to go on the PUP, what does his ADP rise to?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't have an answer for you. If he's not going on the PUP, he'd probably be back in like the 9th, 10th round, right? Like I think there's still that risk or people are worried about his mobility, right? Like he loses all this rushing upside his first year back. And that's what I guess happens with most quarterbacks. Like when an injury like this happens, I mean, but he's still a great passer too.
Yeah, he's got a lot of arm.
It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
I think he probably settles into this 10th round because he probably goes after the Daniel Jones, Tua, Dak, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith sort of tier. But I feel like he settles in above Rodgers, Wilson, Goff. So the 10th round feels about right for Kyler Murray if he doesn't land on the PUP.
For sure.
Okay. Well, that probably does it for us today, Andrew. And really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you so much one more time.
Yeah, of course. And, for anyone watching, if you're not on Underdog somehow, you got to sign up with these guys' code. What is it? Promo code UND, promo code Undroppable. I think I set that up with Chalk, a couple of years ago now. So you guys have been a great partner for us. And appreciate you having me on. But definitely sign up for Underdog and try out one of these Best Ball Mania drafts if you haven't yet, or a puppy. Steven mentioned those ones are only $5.
Yeah, if you're watching the show and you aren't drafting on Underdog, I don't know what you're doing. Get on Underdog right now. Get into a draft room and draft a team for yourself. See where you're
gotta get the shameless plug in.
Well, thank you again, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your night. Peace.